store buzzed faintly with fluorescent lights and the soft hum of checkout scanners as Richard Coleman, dressed in a cheap polyester uniform, pushed his mop bucket past the break room. The smell of industrial cleaners still clung to his hands, and his back ached from bending down more times in 3 days than in the last 3 years combined. It had been his idea to go undercover, no cameras, no press, no board approvals, just him, walking the aisles of one of his least profitable supermarket branches to understand what was going wrong from the inside out. He had expected inefficiency, maybe even some What he didn't expect was the sound of quiet, stifled sobbing drifting from behind the cracked breakroom door. He paused. The store was mostly quiet now, the post-lunch lulls settling over the place. Curious and concerned, he gently pushed the door open and peeked inside. There, at the small round table with a battered microwave behind her, sat a young woman curled inward, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her oversized hoodie hid most of her uniform. She didn't notice him at first. Her body shook with each silent sob, and her phone lay face up on the table, a text message blinking on the screen. Hey, you okay? He asked softly, stepping just enough inside so she could hear him. The girl jumped and quickly wiped her face with her sleeve, trying to compose herself. I'm fine, she said quickly, sniffing. I'm sorry. I just needed a minute. Richard stepped farther in and closed the door gently behind him. Take all the time you need. No rush. He offered a gentle, almost awkward smile. Mind if I sit? She looked up at him, startled by the kindness in his voice, then nodded, eyes still red. I'm Rick, he said, sliding into the chair across from her. Started this week. Emily, she whispered, voice shaky. Me too. Richard tilted his head, pretending not to know the weight behind the moment. Rough, first week. She let out a bitter breath. You could say that. They sat in silence for a moment before she picked up her phone, staring at it like it might burn a hole in her palm. My son's sick, she finally said, her voice trembling. I just got a message from my neighbor. He's got a fever again, and he's crying for me. Richard's chest tightened. I'm sorry to hear that. Is someone with him? She nodded slowly. A teenager from the building is babysitting. I couldn't afford daycare, but he's only 6. He has leukemia. He's been in and out of hospitals since last year. Her voice cracked, and she quickly wiped another tear. I was working at a warehouse before this, but they fired me for missing shifts. I couldn't leave him alone at the hospital. Richard felt like someone had punched him in the gut. He glanced around the room, drab gray walls, vending machine buzzing in the corner, a broken clock ticking above the door. A break room meant to recharge employees was now the place where one quietly fell apart. I asked the manager this morning if I could leave early if I got another emergency call, she said quietly. He told me if I even asked again, I'd be let go. No sympathy, no nothing. Like I'm just a problem, not a person. She gave a shaky laugh, hollow and tired. I'm only here because I needed something, anything. Rent's due next week, and if I lose this job, I lose everything. Richard stared at her, words caught in his throat. The mop bucket outside, the fake name tag, all of it felt like a game now, until this moment. Emily wasn't just a worker. She was the soul of the company he thought he knew, and the truth was breaking him open in ways he hadn't expected. Richard stayed seated across from Emily, his heart heavy as he watched her try to keep herself from completely unraveling. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her phone, knuckles white from the pressure. The pain in her voice, the desperation behind every word, hit him harder than any boardroom crisis he'd ever faced. He leaned forward slightly, trying to keep his tone calm, understanding. Is there anyone else you can call? A relative? A friend who can help out while you're working? Asterisk Emily shook her head slowly, a tired sadness in her eyes. It's just me and him, she said. His dad walked out the day he was diagnosed. Said he couldn't handle being a father to a broken child. Her lips twisted into a bitter smile. I haven't heard from him since. Richard's throat tightened, but he kept his face composed, listening. I tried getting help, she went on. State programs, assistance. But there's always paperwork, waiting lists, delays. They say they'll call back, but they don't. Meanwhile, I've got bills stacked on the kitchen counter, and my son asking me if he's going to die. Asterisk she paused, blinking rapidly as fresh tears welled in her eyes. I don't know what to say to him anymore. I tell him he's strong, that he's going to be okay, but I'm scared all the time, and I'm tired. So tired. Asterisk, Richard nodded slowly. I can't imagine how hard that must be. Asterisk she looked down, voice barely above a whisper. What makes it worse is I don't even have time to cry. I hold it in all day, smile at customers, do my job. Then I come in here and fall apart during my 10-minute break. And still, I feel guilty like I should be doing more. Asterisk, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. This girl, this woman was carrying a weight most couldn't bear, and she was doing it silently, invisibly, in a uniform that barely fit, in a company that had no idea who she really was, or worse, didn't care. You shouldn't feel guilty, he said quietly. But I do, she replied. Because if I don't work, my son doesn't eat. If I do work, he's homesick and scared without me. There's no right answer, just choosing which kind of pain to live with that day. Asterisk she took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, like she was trying to let go of something, but it stayed lodged inside her anyway. Asterisk honestly, she added, I didn't even want to cry today. But when I saw the message, that he was calling out for me. Her voice cracked again, and she clutched her phone tighter. I just broke. Asterisk Richard sat there, stunned by the rawness of it all. No filter, no rehearsed speech, just truth, the kind most CEOs never got to hear. Asterisk she glanced up at him, finally noticing the silence. I'm sorry, she said. You probably didn't need all that. I just didn't know where else to let it out. Asterisk no, he said gently. I needed to hear it, and I'm glad you told me. Asterisk Emily smiled faintly, the kind of smile that said thank you, but also I don't believe anything will change. She stood up, wiping her cheeks, and forcing a more composed look onto her face. Asterisk, I should get back to work, she mumbled, already halfway to the door. Can't afford to lose this one too. Asterisk, as she left the room, Richard remained seated, staring at the empty chair she left behind. Asterisk for the first time in years. He felt ashamed not of her pain, but of how blind he had been to it. Asterisk the next morning, the store had a strange, nervous energy in the air. Employees whispered among themselves, as men in tailored suits stepped through the sliding doors and walked with purpose toward the back office. The general manager, Mr. Lowell, was called over with a stiff nod and led away behind closed doors, his face flushing red with confusion. Asterisk Emily stood near checkout lane 3, nervously adjusting her badge. She hadn't seen Rick since yesterday's conversation, and her heart still felt heavy from the things she had shared. She regretted how much she'd opened up. It wasn't like her to unload on a stranger, even a kind one. She told herself to stay focused. She needed the hours, needed to stay invisible, to survive. Then the intercom crackled. Attention, all staff. Please come to the front of the store for a special announcement. Asterisk the employees shuffled forward, one by one, confused. Some looked annoyed. A few worried it was a round of layoffs. Emily hesitated, then followed the others, her fingers gripping the scanner gun tightly in her apron pocket. Asterisk a platform had been set up near the produce section. The suits from earlier now stood around it, and to everyone's shock, Rick the quiet, mop-wielding new Geist stepped up onto the small stage. But something was different. His uniform shirt was gone, replaced by a crisp dress shirt and tailored slacks, and his name tag was missing. Asterisk, Emily blinked. That wasn't Rick. Asterisk, the man took the mic and looked out at the employees. His expression serious but kind. Asterisk, my name is Richard Coleman, he said clearly. I'm the founder and CEO of this company. Asterisk, gasps rippled through the crowd. The general manager, now standing off to the side, looked, pale and stunned. Asterisk, for the past few days, Richard continued, I've been working undercover in this very store. I've mopped floors, stocked shelves, helped customers, and stood beside many of you without revealing who I am. I wanted to see what was really going on beyond the boardroom, beyond the reports. What I found changed me. He paused, eyes scanning the room, until they landed on Emily. Yesterday, I spoke to one of our newest employees. She didn't know who I was. She just saw me as someone willing to listen. And she told me something that shattered me. Asterisk, Emily's breath caught. The others followed his gaze, slowly realizing who he meant. Her heart pounded in her chest, panic rising. Asterisk, she's a single mother, Richard said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Her son is 6 years old and fighting leukemia. She's juggling hospital calls, unpaid bills, and fear, and yet she still shows up here with a brave face, doing her job while breaking inside. Asterisk, Emily lowered her head, mortified, her cheeks burning. She wanted to run. She hadn't wanted this attention, but Richard raised a hand gently, stopping her.